listener production.
Hey, Chris Spyrou with you. Happy Monday and welcome to The Briefing. The end of financial year is nearly here, and while it's a reminder to get your taxes and receipts in order, it's also a time to snag some great deals. Or is it?
You're scrolling and you're seeing a product come up and suddenly a pop-up comes up that 172 people are looking at that exact same product. It creates that sense of FOMO that get you to stay on the site, to fork out a lot more than you're actually thinking about.
That deep dive into the sneaky ways big brands are tricking you into spending more and how to avoid it this end of financial year is coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, let's get into the headlines with Tara Cassidy. It's Monday, the 23rd of June.
Hey Chris, and to you listening, we're starting today in the Middle East, where planned evacuations of Australians trapped in Israel have been cancelled following the US's strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear sites. President Donald Trump says Operation Midnight Hammer was necessary to take out the facilities where he claims Iran was building nuclear weapons.
I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
The strikes reportedly involved 14 of the US's heavy bunker buster bombs, so those 13,500 kilo bombs that can penetrate up to 60 metres underground. Iran has condemned the attacks and called for an urgent emergency meeting with the UN Security Council, claiming the strikes were illegal and in breach of international law. It's also warning of retaliation and the US specifically of, quote, everlasting consequences.
Yeah, and the Australian government has since commented on the strikes as well, saying Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program has been a threat to international peace and security and has now called for a de-escalation, dialogue and diplomacy. Meanwhile, European leaders have urged Iran not to retaliate directly against the US, while Israel has welcomed the move, which is no surprise as it helped the US coordinate the strikes.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace.
Now, a number of experts say they think the attacks may have set Iran's nuclear program back a few years, but the risk of it being rebuilt remains. We did speak to the ABC's Middle East correspondent Alison Horn, who says despite the US's claims about Iran's nuclear program, there's not been any proof yet that Iran was actually building nuclear weapons.
It's no secret that it's got nuclear capabilities, but as to the question of whether or not Iran is close to being able to create a nuclear weapon, there is no hard proof of that Israel has been able to provide at the moment, apart from saying that they have internal intelligence that they're not going to share.
Meanwhile, Iran's own supreme leader has actually come out and said that Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, which is what this is all about, hasn't been impacted despite those attacks. Now, as for this back and forth whether Iran is or was building nuclear weapons or not, it's been a point of contention. Many pointed out that Trump's own US intelligence community actually rejected that claim. However, the US's Director of National Intelligence has actually come out saying her words were taken out of context. She did testify saying Iran wasn't actively building them, but now says Iran has got a tremendous amount of material and has the capacity to build such weapons within months.
Yeah, and that change of position came over the weekend when Donald Trump openly criticised her position, saying she effectively had no clue what she was talking about. Who's telling the truth is anyone's guess at this point, realistically. But what we do know for sure is Australia's stance, like we mentioned earlier. And in that particular statement, they did note that Iran's nuclear program is a threat. As for Aussies in the Middle East at the moment, we know that there are around 4,000 and their family members currently registered with DFAT who are due to evacuate Israel and Iran, but those plans have now been cancelled. They've been warned by the government to shelter in place and monitor public safety information. And while planned evacuations of many of these Aussies by buses were cancelled over the weekend, the Department of Foreign Affairs says it will be communicating with them about future plans to get them out when it's safe to do so.
A manhunt is underway for a 19-year-old driver who fled the scene of a crash that killed a 55-year-old woman and seriously injured her pregnant daughter in New South Wales yesterday. Police have confirmed the 28-year-old was 25 weeks pregnant and lost her baby following the head-on collision in Newcastle. It's understood the crash occurred shortly after a white Commodore with fake plates and 4 teens inside sped away from a police check in North Lambton.
Police say a pursuit wasn't initiated due to safety concerns, with officers losing sight of the car when it crossed onto the wrong side of the road. It was there that it slammed into the other vehicle. A critical incident team is investigating the circumstances of the event as well as the police response.
Now, the driver of the Holden and a 17-year-old front passenger reportedly fled the scene before police arrived, leaving behind 2 teenage girls who were 15 and 17 in the back seat. They were treated by paramedics on the scene and taken to hospital, where they now remain under police guard and both in critical conditions. Police are still searching for the pair that fled. Anyone with information or dashcam footage is urged to contact them.
Warmer weather is on the way for parts of the country that woke to temperatures colder than Antarctica over the weekend. Oof. The Bureau of Meteorology is forecasting the eastern states are set for a short burst of warm reprieve above the June average, with Sydney and Brisbane expected to reach between 22 and 23 degrees today, and Melbourne and Adelaide both tipped to hit 19.
Yeah, and that comes after Canberra shivered through its coldest June morning in nearly 40 years yesterday, recording a low of 5.5 degrees. And Goulburn, a town 2 hours southwest of Sydney, out-iced Antarctica, Chris, hitting a low of -10. Oh my gosh. And that cold snap was apparently caused by a high-pressure system over the country's southeast, but temperatures are expected to be above average today, 5 degrees more than normal, before the cool winds return tomorrow.
Pet owners are being advised to keep their washing machine doors closed and to check twice before starting a load after a Queensland cat survived a full 55-minute cycle inside a washing machine.
Oh my gosh.
Pablo, a 9-month-old Burmese, climbed into his owner's front-loader washing machine for a nap earlier this month, with his owner turning it on, not realising he was inside.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She ran a cleaning cycle with no clothes inside and found Pablo an hour later in a critical condition, and he was rushed to a Gold Coast vet with brain and lung injuries, but miraculously managed to survive, Chris, and is almost back to full health.
Yeah.
Cats must really have 9 lives.
Yeah, I know. This is actually insane, and I was reading a little bit about it. Vets say that while Pablo's case is extraordinary and, like they said, it's miraculous, household appliances do pose a risk and a hidden danger to curious cats. Apparently, this is a normal thing for cats to kind of go in there and have little naps. I'm not a cat owner. I've always been a dog owner, so this is something that would never, ever, ever happen to me.
Agreed.
Yeah, my lab, she makes her presence known, and the closest I've ever come to her having a run-in with an appliance of some sort is the lawnmower, which she's obsessed with yapping at. But with most labs, she's all bark, no bite. So yeah, we've never had a run-in like this. What about you, Tara?
Yeah, I can't say anything like the washing machine. My Frenchies are a little bit too short. They're not climbing into any washing machines, but
yes.
We have had several a visit to the emergency vet for doing stupid things. One of them has eaten a metre-long belt of ours and some socks and has required emergency surgery. So
oh my God.
Can empathise with animals going into silly spots and doing silly things.
But that got us thinking about you listening, whether you have an animal that's done crazy things or still does crazy things. We're going to pop a question up in our broadcast channel on our Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. Just follow the description there to get to Behind the Briefing and interact with us. We absolutely love seeing all your different answers. That is it for headlines for today. Up next is my deep dive, looking into the sneaky tricks big brands are playing on you to spend more and how to avoid it this end of financial year. Check it out. That deep dive is coming up for you next. Did you know that the end of financial year is around the corner? Maybe you couldn't tell from all the signs plastered around your local shopping centre or from the hundreds of messages hitting your inbox and feed right this very second. The discounts and sales are everywhere, and that little voice in your head is probably going, oh, that does look like a bargain. But are we really scoring deals, or are we being played? Chandni Gupta is the Deputy CEO of the Consumer Policy Research Centre, and she joins me now. Chandni, welcome to the briefing. Are end of financial year sales really the bargain bonanza they're made out to be, or are we just being nudged into spending more than we should?
The answer really is, it depends. We really don't know anymore. It's not like back in the day where you had particular moments in the year where you had a sale and you knew that that price was going to drop at that particular time. Now, it could be moving every few weeks and we don't know exactly what we're being sold. The other aspect is there's a feature that a lot of businesses use called dark patterns. It's basically a design feature built into websites and apps purely to nudge our choices, our experience, and even our decisions. And a lot of it you can see in shopping online. So things like only 2 left in stock, or a sign coming up saying sign up to 10% off. But then that 10% off can only be if it's full priced, if it's at a particular time, or you need to spend enough. So sometimes you may be ending up spending a lot more than you actually thought you would be.
And you've done a bunch of research in this particular field, and I'm curious to get your read on this. How does this differ to plain old advertising? Like, someone from the corporate world would look at this and go, well, that, sir, is excellent marketing. How does it differ to that?
Good old advertising is just that. It's an ad. It looks like an ad. It talks like an ad. It is exactly what it is. However, these are things embedded into your purchasing and shopping experience. So you're browsing and you're scrolling and you're seeing a product come up and suddenly a pop-up comes up that 172 people are looking at that exact same product. It creates that sense of FOMO that usual advertising didn't have that element to it. The other side of it is confirm shaming, which is also a tactic that's used, which basically puts you down for not taking up an offer. So you might have seen when a sign comes up saying, sign up to our inbox and get all these discounts. And then you've got 2 buttons, one that says, yeah, sure, sign me up. And the other one that says, no, I just like paying more. So it's those kind of tactics that are just designed very much to get you to spend, get you to stay on the site, and get you to fork out a lot more than you're actually thinking about.
In your opinion, and this might be a really bold question, but who do you think are the biggest culprits when it comes to this? Because for me, immediately Temu comes to mind. They do an excellent job at reminding me that I put something in my cart that I haven't checked out, and they don't let you forget it.
No, they don't. So they're the ultimate naggers. And in fact, they're everywhere. So Temu is just one example. Almost any online marketplace will do it. You'll see if you have abandoned cart. I often do it where I've browsed and I've left it. And then they go, we've saved the cart for you and we're giving you a 5% discount. And 180 people are looking at it right now, and there's only 3 left in stock. It creates such a FOMO that you go down this pathway of going, okay, I need to get it now. And it might not be the case. Actually, for example, Shein has been taken up by the EU for basically a lot of these tactics that are being used. The EU Commission there has said that this is not on. They've given a warning to Shein for all of these dark pattern practices that are happening. So there is change, but certainly here we're not seeing anything like that.
I can hear people listening already thinking to themselves, well, look, at the end of the day, I'm saving money. I don't really care if I'm getting pestered as long as I'm getting that nice little discount at the checkout. But your research has suggested that that's just not exactly the case all the time.
No, not all the time. So what may appear to be a discount may not exactly be a discount. It could be countdown timers are a perfect example of that. So some countdown timers are really genuine. So it'll say, 24-hour sale, and you'll go on the website and you'll see that countdown going. But we have seen in cases where the countdown timer finishes, 2 hours later, it pops up again and the price looks different, or the price looks exactly the same. And so you might not be getting quite the bargain that you hoped for.
So another tactic that goes often unnoticed is private or white labeling. What can you tell us about that?
So private or white labeling is basically a product that's been manufactured in one place, and then different businesses may buy it and then resell it, putting their own branding. They may add a little bit more extra detail. They may do a few different things, but genuinely the only biggest difference is that the brand and the retailer is different. So it's a little bit of creative branding. One of the issues with white labeling is that you just really don't know what you are paying for and whether you actually got the best price, because there could be two products, they look exactly the same. One has really lovely branding in it, one has a very simple branding on it, and they've decided what price they think you should be paying. So I'll give you an example. I love pot plants, and I've got one on my desk here. It's a little sage green, very cute little pot plant. And I reverse image searched this particular pot. And what I got was dozens of results, all of the same pot, even the same color. It's rebranded, resold, repriced, and the prices varied anywhere from $10 to $40. So in these kind of instances, it feels like you have to be a little bit of a shopping detective to get a fair deal. And it leaves you really open to, you're swinging in a pendulum, kind of going, am I getting a fair deal or I'm getting ripped off? And there's just no way of knowing right now which one it is.
You've also dug into a little bit of the psychology, and one stat that stood out for me is that nearly half of Australians spend more than they intend on because of these tactics. Why do you think Australians are still falling for this?
So unfortunately, we don't have similar laws that other jurisdictions have. So we have laws that say that a business can't lie to us, and we have laws that say businesses can't do something extremely egregious. But we don't have anything in the middle, so anything that would be unfair or we considered unfair. So what we really need to see is an unfair trading prohibition introduced here in Australia, similar to what's in the EU and the US. So it says that unfair practices are banned. It should also have a blacklist where a government can add practices as they evolve, and dark patterns would be a practice that would be added to that list, and it could evolve over time. The other aspect to it is that it needs to apply to whole of economy, no carve-outs, no exceptions, and that would mean that we hold everyone accountable for the experience that they're providing consumers. So the EU has had it for decades. The US has had the unfair trading prohibition since the 1930s. And because it's general and because it's tech neutral, it means that they're taking action against dark patterns. And so these kind of deceptive design features, they're taking action against them in today's world based on a law that was from 1930s. Like it's really important that Australia has a general prohibition like this, so we are able to hold businesses accountable, especially as our digital economy evolves.
So if I were to, summarize it a little bit, it feels like there's a contest between consumer true choice and the corporate interests of big brands and businesses that are trying to sell to us. If all these regulations kick in tomorrow, how would that change my shopping experience?
It would mean that what you're seeing online is actually genuine. So the price that you're shown would actually be genuine. You'd be able to have confidence in the experience that you're having. Now, some of these could be captured by current misleading and deceptive laws, but having this really broad prohibition means that none of these tactics would actually end up being on our shopping site. So when we're going shopping, we're buying something because we want it, we need it. Probably the biggest shift that we will see see is in things like subscriptions. So subscriptions at the moment are really easy to sign up. It probably only takes 1 or 2 clicks, and before you know it, we've joined a subscription package. But cancelling out can take multiple steps. And so we found out 3 in 4 Australians have had some form of negative experience when trying to cancel. And 1 in 10 actually don't end up going through the process because they find it so difficult that they end up continuing to pay for something they no longer need or want. I think those are the biggest changes. Not only are we going to see us saving money, but we're also going to see an experience where the choice that we're making is a choice that we genuinely want to make instead of a choice that's pushed on us.
I do want to ask you, in your opinion, do you think Australia has the mechanisms and the structures and the manpower to make that happen, to make this be enforceable and exist?
We have great consumer protections and great regulators. We certainly have all the foundations to make this work. And what's been great is the government has been consulting on it. It's just a matter of time for it to be put in place. One thing that we will really have to be very careful about is how we enforce it, because often the regulators are going against huge businesses that have very deep pockets. So being able to ensure that our regulators have the resources and tools and the capacity to be able to take on these big businesses and actually hold them accountable, that will be great. And that might mean thinking more than just fining them. It could be things like data disgorgement, which means that you are actually asking a business to take down and delete and remove any data, any algorithms, any products and services that they've designed based on those illegal practices.
So lastly, before we let you go, for anyone listening here who's maybe fed up with all these different tactics, or maybe listening to this, they've gone, oh gosh, I've been duped by the big brands, but they still want to stay online. I still want to online shop. I don't want to give up my consumer habits. What are some tips and tricks to kind of just keep yourself safe online and not fall for these traps so easily?
You know, I too want to be online. I think I've got 3 carts running at the moment on the side that I'll jump back into later this evening. We do, but I think one of the things that we can do at the moment is really question when a countdown timer comes up, is it really genuine? Or when they're saying only 2 left, is that really genuine? And then it's almost taking a step back going, do I really need it now? And so it's some of those questions, but it shouldn't have to be on you as an individual to have to navigate those decisions. It shouldn't have to be on you. Ideally, what we need is a broader regulation to come into place so that we all have a great experience online, because being online, there are so many benefits and we shouldn't have to compromise with our time and money just to be able to access a product or service that we want.
Excellent. So it sounds like a little bit of healthy skepticism in the meantime while we let the lawmakers do their thing. Chandni, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
That was Chandni Gupta, the Deputy CEO of the Consumer Policy Research Centre, speaking with me there. That is it for this episode of The Briefing. We'll be back this afternoon with another episode, and I will be back with Tara Cassidy tomorrow morning for another dose of headlines and an interesting deep dive. I'm Chris Spyrou. Catch you then.
Listener.